What would you say is foreseen in the future job market?
Well, I think we're watching the economy change and we're having to learn by what's happening. Academia does not necessarily dictate what will happen, so we're having to be more responsive. But clearly the infusion of technology, big data, cloud computing, there's a lot of themes around technology that we're going to have to be cognizant of. And a lot of the literature that I've read, the problem solving is becoming much more complex. It is multidisciplinary, so the days of being a specialist in any one area, although that's needed, you really have to have the ability to be able to be a quick study in multiple disciplines and solve very complex problems that didn't exist before. And so if you don't have all those skill sets, being a team member and the ability to interact effectively with others to solve these complex problems are going to be even more critical going forward. So the job market, it's going to be complex. They talk about the jobs that we're training for today don't even exist 5 years from now. I don't think that is an understatement or a misrepresentation. So we have to be nimble as higher education to be responsive in anticipating those needs. But I think looking at jobs that are very complex, not traditional in the old way, and certainly an infusion of technology and working with others. And the days of just being a cubicle worker punching away, not going to be as effective as a technology worker of the future, solving those cross-functional problems.
Absolutely. And in the wake of those complex issues, how would you say MSJC is preparing students for this future?
Well, I think the skills that are talked about in the literature about what is needed to be an effective worker in that workplace, being the worker of the future is exactly what we have as part of our core general education outcomes. And being a critical thinker, a problem solver, the ability to apply to research, to manage information, collect information, we are infusing that across the curriculum so that people will leave Mount San Jacinto College, whether it's for a job or for moving on to the four-year school, the foundational base thinking skills that will allow them to excel and engage in those environments. But we're talking about programs that are more interdisciplinary in nature. One such program it's interesting, we had a conversation with faculty about bringing journalism to Mount San Jacinto College, and you think, oh, well, that's just one-dimensional. But really, when you look at the complete set of skills that are needed from the communication department to the English department to the digital media department, those are all skills companies are seeking right now. So the ability to research something, to write about it, to communicate about it effectively and get an outcome as far as the message that you want to deliver, really critical in almost all business applications. So you're seeing those types of programs being looked at, although that's an old type of program, the way that Mount San Jacinto and our faculty are looking at it, very innovative in that it's not housed in the English department. It is really going to be a project of love from across many disciplines.
How important will the gig economy be, and what's being planned to educate those future gig employees?
Well, I think you're seeing an emergence of this. You've seen it for some time, and it's not that it is completely new. A lot of companies do specialty contract work in a variety of areas that aren't core to their mission and to their strengths. So that'll continue. You're seeing it happen with greater ease because of communication technology, being able to go out on the web and various platforms that can engage contractors for short-term and complex short-term projects that you may not have the expertise within your own company. The college does it, corporations do it, they do it with media production. But the gig economy certainly is here to stay. But I don't think it's going to take over everything, because the worry was, oh, everybody's going to become an independent contractor. Well, there's still a great deal of value associated with building a team that can create great efficiencies, working together, and really create synergy for an organization where they're greater as a team than any one individual. But like I said, bringing in individuals for specialty knowledge, niche skills that don't necessarily exist will still happen. The other thing that will drive the gig economy is that you're going to have to produce. Being unproductive with poor quality work, that's going to separate the performers from the non-performers. And so it's not going to be for everybody, because when you're out there on an island by yourself trying to produce, it's going to be real easy for somebody to hold you accountable to outcomes that they contract with you. So it's not going to be for everybody. So There will be those that succeed, and there's plenty of work for those with those specialty skills, but it's not going to overturn the economy and everybody's going to become independent contractors. It's going to be a true blending. And I think it will allow companies to be more nimble, bring in expertise where needed on an as-needed basis. The discussion around healthcare, certainly companies are looking for ways to save. So if you don't need to bring somebody on that you really don't need full-time, that investment in that person and their healthcare can maybe be better directed towards other outcomes that the company needs to maybe bring in additional expertise in an area where they can help leverage that collective group and just bring in that expertise. So the gig economy, great for nimbleness.
Do you anticipate a spike in those contractors and freelancers to fill in those skilled positions?
I think because data and informatics are becoming so complex, especially on the data analysis side. I look at where we've come from as just the college, and I can only imagine businesses just as adept at growing and recognizing the value in big data. Those skills are not easily found, always cultivated from within, so I could see a lot of individuals with specialty areas that can help companies with technology skills, programming, research, analytics, that they don't always need constantly 24/7. So we've got a good team, but there are times when we've even been stretched and we need to respond to something, a new state initiative, where we have to bring somebody in. We don't have time to go out and recruit, hire that permanent person that will be with you anywhere from 1 to 5 to 10 years. I need results maybe in 2 months. The only way to get those results moving that quickly are going to be working through the gig economy and a contractor.
I read workers who are able to combine mathematical and interpersonal skills are able to find lucrative and rewarding opportunities in the future. But what's your take on this?
In the academic world, students that do have strong analytic skills actually do succeed at a higher level. But as I mentioned before also, working in teams is critical now because there's so much information, so much complexity to the jobs and the tasks that we're engaging in. It is really quite unrealistic for someone to expect one employee, no matter how educated or talented, to have all the skills to allow them to achieve an outcome in that complex work environment. So when you've got those analytical skills that help you harness data or technology, engineering, a whole host of things, you can communicate that, work with others, and it goes back to leveraging human capital across multiple people. And if you and I were to go put our heads together on a project, we're going to produce, I guarantee we'll produce something a lot better than that which I could only do by myself. And then as you multiply that out. So it's that human touch that we all crave, and can't be all done in isolation, no matter how much we like to think that, virtual work in the future, you still have to have strong interpersonal skills, even in a virtual environment.
So what would you say, what are some other skill sets that employees of the future will definitely need?
The ability to really engage problem solving at a much higher level. The problems are going to be much more complex. So creative thinking, critical thinking are two areas that are going to need to be amplified in the curriculum and developed in our students. Learning to work virtually as a team, that's a skill set that is also going to have to be learned. It's not difficult, according to the literature, but you are looking at some different skill sets as far as the human touch, frequency of communication and such. Even the way we write and communicate through technology has a little different message than the words we use and choose right here during an oral conversation.
So what other skill sets would you say future employees need?
Well, in addition to those other ones, a new term that I have learned recently, and we've all become familiar with STEM or STEAM, science, technology, engineering, and math, but SMAC was a relatively new term that I've learned, and social, mobile, analytics, and cloud. So those are some new skill sets that employees of the future are going to need to master along with STEM. And then another word that I've used today, I think, was interdisciplinary. A lot of the data and research indicate that future students should really have exposure to multiple disciplines, not just one major. If they can minor, just getting a breadth of experience that allows them maybe an area of technical skill and maybe a mastery of communications or interpersonal skills, social sciences, history, the arts, so that they have that breadth within their academic bandwidth, so it allows them to think in different ways depending on the type of situation and complex problems that are put in front of them, and allows them to interact with diverse populations as well. And I think that's the other thing that we've seen is the ability to interact effectively in diverse workplace settings so that we can leverage and get beyond any potential conflict and actually operate in a very complementary manner and appreciative of each other's differences so that we can get to that solution, and for the company, the bottom line, a little quicker, but also having a much more enjoyable workplace that is more productive when you get out, get rid of the conflict. But again, I think there is some of that as well, learning to have conflict resolution skills in moving forward, because not everybody in such a diverse setting will have the same perspective. So learning to navigate those interpersonal relationships. So it goes back to those interpersonal skills that are so valuable. So it goes back to soft skills. Yeah, you can be the world's greatest engineer, but you got to be able to work with each other to solve that. Or if you're a researcher, work together to solve that medical breakthrough that really saves lives.
What would you say are the biggest challenges in educating people for the future?
I think you have a different generation coming forward. We're still trying to get clarity in identifying what the workforce needs and what higher education's role is. I think we're seeing a change in the way we embrace business, and we really aren't trying to dictate to business. We in higher education, at least at the community college level, are trying to be more responsive. Although we're thought leaders, we can't dictate to the businesses how they operate and how their problems are addressed. You know, they're ultimately the driver and the consumer of our graduates. So we need to deliver graduates that meet their needs and blend that with the tradition of higher education and the academy. So it is kind of a clash of cultures. But we have to be more cognizant of the graduates that we produce have to add value to companies, not just now, but really looking at that over the horizon. And like we started out at the beginning of the conversation, designing education for jobs that don't yet exist. And I think the only way we can future-proof ourselves, and I think that's really important, is to develop that lifelong learner, those critical thinking skills, that ability to be an independent thinker and learner, and really reach into the future and know that I may not have the skills now, but with the information and technology that are at our fingertips right now in our phones, we can become subject matter experts in a matter of minutes or hours or weeks to help effectively achieve a goal or outcome for a company or a project or an organization. And it's not just companies. I mean, it's everything we do in our lives, whether it's a family issue, a church issue, a community group that we volunteer for. All these problems are becoming more and more complex. And then I think the last thing is having that moral compass, that ability to act ethically in a way, and that's not going to go away in the future, to make sure that we're doing things that don't harm anyone and that they are equity minded and really try and create a fair and balanced outcome for all. We ourselves are looking at big data. We're also reaching out to businesses, and you certainly can have the quantitative side, but without the qualitative touch with business, we're really trying to create the best look at the future. And in fact, we're collaborating right now with some of the local economic development councils, the EDC down here in Southwest Riverside County, as well as with local businesses, and trying to bring in some national speakers, looking at some research and data that's available through the state, and trying to put on a conference about the future for work so that we can better understand that. And this is not going to be a one-time conversation. We recognize that this needs to be ongoing. So the intent is to start to spur some new thinking. Instead of that 1 to 3, 1 to 5 year outlook, really start to get people to look over the horizon, because oftentimes higher education, we don't move as nimbly as other industries, but I think we are showing that we are more responsive, especially in the workforce training areas, because the success of our region, the quality of life, the quality of jobs that will exist in our region is dependent on having that trained workforce that can attract the businesses or to cultivate the businesses here. So it's a really great symbiotic relationship.
So how would you say MSJC is preparing students for this future?
Well, we're not working in isolation. We're certainly embracing our partners in the community, whether that's city government, whether that's the local business community, higher education partners with Cal State, UC, the privates, non-governmental organizations. In fact, we're collaborating right now on a conference to bring in a national speaker, pull the data, so make sure we got the quantitative, but also that we have some of the qualitative to look down the road a bit, over the horizon, so that we can anticipate not 1 to 2 years out, but really what is this area going to need in a decade, and try and identify some of the programs and training that we need to start to engage in now to create that workforce that really raises the quality of life and the bottom line for the businesses in our area.
Excellent. Well, Roger, it's been a pleasure, and we really appreciate your time.
My pleasure too. Thank you.
Thank you.